Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Sonia Siddiqui with Online Services at ACCES Employment, and I'm here with Michelle from Robert Half, and she's going to be going over a very attractive workshop today called Resume Refresh: How to Avoid Mistakes and Writing the Perfect Resume and Cover Letter. So, Michelle, you want to quickly say hi to everyone?
Hi, welcome.
Yeah, so she's come back for us, and we want her to keep coming back because she's been bringing great webinars to us.
Great, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to anyone that attended my webinar a couple of weeks back, and welcome to all our new people. So today we're going to be running through a presentation on a resume refresh, so writing the perfect resume and cover letter. My name is Michelle Hinnekanen, and I've been with Robert Half for 16 years. I'm a resource manager within our financial services team that focuses in the vendor management space. We're celebrating 70 years this year, so we've been around for quite a while. Our Toronto area offices have divisions in vendor management systems, which is the area that I work in, accountants, office team, management resources, our Robert Half Finance and Accounting Permanent Division, Robert Half Legal, Technology, the Creative Group, and Executive Search. So you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So during the job search, this is definitely super important. And one of the first ways that you do this is through the resume or cover letter that you might send to an employer. So with intense competition for each opening, you just have one shot potentially to show that hiring person that you're the right person for the position, or you're the person that they pick up the phone to talk to you. So you want to ensure you spend the time developing a well-crafted resume and cover letter, and you might evolve these. So definitely we're going to run through a bit of the art of the resume and cover letter. You might also hear me use CV in place of resume, so that way you know. Sonia, can you move to the next slide, please? Um, so just 2 minutes. Research is conducted by our firm indicates the hiring manager on average spends only 2 minutes reviewing an applicant's resume. That means you don't have much time to convince an employer you're the right person for the job. Your resume needs to be concise, to the point, and targeted if you want to make a first impression. For me, when I'm looking at these resumes, sometimes it's even less than that. I'm scanning it for organizations, financial services specifically, keywords, to see whether that person might have a background in roles that we might see through the vendor management space. And if so, then I would pick up the phone to give them a call. If you can move to the next slide. So get resume ready. You want to make sure your resume is simple, easy to understand, but also gives tangible insight into your experience. It needs to be keyword rich and show a complete snapshot of your professional experience. So the next slide. So choosing a resume format, there's a few different ones. We're going to highlight all of them. Chronological, a functional resume, as well as a combination of the two. So the chronological resume, this is easy to follow. It lists your work experience in reverse chronological order. You're most likely, many people, this is probably the most common style. It shows it in reverse chronological order. It also shows an employer your duties and accomplishments in each particular job. Many people prefer to prepare their resumes in this fashion because it provides an easy to follow snapshot of your work history and gives prominence to what you're doing now, usually responsibilities and skills you might be most proud of or similar to the type of position you're applying for. Consider using this format if you're looking for a role in the same field, you have a solid record of experience, and the strongest aspect of your career is reflected in your most recent job. And now we'll move on to functional resume. So the functional resume, it's organized around your skills, your experiences, your accomplishments. So instead of it reading, I was a customer service rep at ABC Bank in Toronto, Canada, your sections might be customer service experience, management and training skills, and so on. A functional resume omits entirely or mentions only in broad terms the jobs you've held and when. A functional resume allows you to shift the focus away from aspects of your background that might prevent employers from considering you, such as extended gaps in your employment history. But sometimes hiring managers find that this is a little bit suspicious, this format, because they're not able to determine where you did certain skills for how long. Our company recently reported that functional resumes are on their way out, and its hiring managers tend to prefer the ones that are in chronological format instead. So some people that might use a functional resume, maybe it's an entry-level job seeker, they have limited work experience, maybe they don't have any work experience, perhaps it's just academics, maybe some volunteer work in school. Someone that may be re-entering the workplace and past jobs do not demonstrate growth and responsibility. If you're using this resume, you would need to spend extra time crafting your cover letter to talk a bit about the experience you bring to set you apart. For the roles that I work on in the vendor management space, these resumes do not work. So I would ask a candidate if they sent me this to actually prepare a chronological resume. And now we'll work on to the combination. The combination resume combines features of chronological and functional resumes. And this is gaining in popularity. It allows you to showcase your skills and accomplishments under functional headings while providing the reader a thumbnail sketch of your work history, as well as including a short list of your past positions and employers and some of the experiences around that. If you do go with this format, please do not take an entire page of skills and accomplishments before you even get to your work experience and history. Someone might already decide not to read any farther. This probably should be a short few lines at the beginning of the resume. So I would say that if you're going to look to do one, the chronological or combination are definitely ones to consider. Sonia, if you can move to the next slide, please. So resume must-haves, ROIs. So show measurable results when possible. So this could include, did you plan an event that spearheaded leads for 6 new business opportunities? Did you create a new web design that created increased traffic flow to your company website? By how much? Please give, whenever possible, numbers that show the impact you have. Did you increase sales? Did you streamline processes, maybe using a new Excel spreadsheet? So share those types of things with the role that you are presenting. And visually, don't go for gimmicks. Go for a clean look, logical headers, easy to scan, and reflective of your online brand identity. Through LinkedIn. I know we spoke in our last webinar about LinkedIn social media presence, so make sure there's some consistency there. And always make sure you have someone else proofread your resume. Sometimes we don't pick up our own spelling or grammatical mistakes, so definitely a great idea, as well as maybe reading it out loud. And we're going to talk a little bit about developing a ROI, return on investment resume. Sonia, if you can move to the next slide, please. So the CAR statement. C is for challenge, the conditions under which you did the work. A for action, what did you do and what actions did you take? And R is the resolution of the business impact of your actions. You need to quickly and clearly demonstrate what makes you stand out. In other words, you must convey your unique value proposition. And you can do this by focusing on your specific accomplishments that have benefited in your past roles and employers. So for example, you redesigned the monthly financial close, and it led to reducing time to close process from 1 week to 2 days. So when developing your CAR statements, think about what value you've added in that role. Maybe you reduced costs, streamlined processes, like we said, increased efficiency or improved sales, and then try to quantify your accomplishments with specific numbers. You definitely want to make sure you're tracking this throughout your career and not just when you're looking for work. Sometimes, we unexpectedly find ourselves out of a job. And if you're trying to scramble at that point to figure out what you've been doing for the last maybe 5 or 10 years in a role, you might struggle. So it's always good maybe to do a yearly update of your resume or create a document where you're able to mark down the accomplishments you've had, impact that you've made in your role. So you're not trying to start from scratch when you're all of a sudden going out to look for a job. So writing your resume. Avoid I. When we're creating a resume, the first thing we see at the top is our name. So anyone that is going to be the recipient of this resume will know that this is about you. So you just keep your sentences short. Resumes require crisp statements that do not necessarily have to be complete statements. So feel free to leave out common articles such as a, and the. Write in plain English. Keep it simple. Don't try to impress employers with long words. These can often bog down your sentences, and make sure that you don't get to the actual point you're trying to. If you're using language that's maybe not familiar to the person looking at your resume, that may make it challenging. As well, avoid lots of acronyms. I say that, if you're using acronyms, also use the full spelling, because in different places in the world, different acronyms can mean different things. For example, CDS. CDS to me means two different things. It means a credit default swap, and it also means the Canadian depository system. So depending on the audience, that could be people could get very confused by that. And use bullet points when appropriate. Makes it easier to read, helps the solid block of text stand out. Make sure these are consistent throughout your resume. Don't use 4 or 5 different fonts in different areas of your resume. Make sure that it looks simplified and professional. We can move to the next slide. So keywords. Reflect on specific aspects of your background. Job titles, departments, as well as the organizations. Then you want to know, in terms of keywords, the more you have, the better. So tracking systems may be able to search for different keywords based on the number found, to move that application higher in the process, or being sent to the hiring managers. So look at the roles that you're applying for. Do you have what they're looking for? So for example, an executive assistant, they may look for words like CAP, CPS, IAAP. So in general, like I said, the more keywords in your resume contains, the better. But remember to only include them if they accurately reflect your background. So if you have not done something in a specific area, you might not include that keyword. So if you're looking at the posting and you're seeing words such as reconciliations and settlements, you have that. So you want to include those words. But you may also want to include, your experience with equity instruments, derivatives, fixed income products, to add to that resume. And if someone's maybe landed a job in a similar field to you, maybe ask if they can take a look at their resume and see what they've included. Chances are they've contained the right keywords to get them screened in as opposed to screened out. We can go to the next slide, Sonia. Should I list temporary work? You would treat your temporary work similar to your full-time work. Sometimes individuals will write it under one employer. So for example, if you're working through our office team division, many times some of those reception and administration jobs can be as little as 1 day or a couple of weeks, or sometimes longer term. So maybe you've included that into one listing and talking about what you've done, what you've accomplished. If you work long term for an employer, you might break those up. So emphasize the nature of work you performed during that time. How do I apply for multiple jobs within the same company? If you submit more than one resume, even for different positions, there's a chance some will be seen as duplicates and may be eliminated from the process. So definitely consider customizing the version of your resume for each opening. If you are emailing it to the same inbox, for example, if someone's applying to us for multiple temporary opportunities and emailing the same person, they could probably do that potentially in one email document. So just take a look at where you're sending it and make that call at that time. The appropriate length. 5, 6, 7-page manifestos are always out. In other countries, definitely some resume lengths will be quite a bit longer than they might be here in Canada. But definitely, I think definitely 2 to 3 pages is what you should aim for. I mean, if you're just starting out, you might be able to get that resume into 1 page. Sometimes I find with 1-page resumes, individuals leave out a lot of keywords, a lot of pertinent information, their accomplishments, and that actually might lead to them maybe not getting a called or screened out versus screened in. And how do I address employment gaps? 93% of executives said they'd be concerned about a candidate's fit for a position if their resume showed involuntary periods of unemployment. So you could proactively provide an explanation within your cover letter, or alternatively within the first interview with the hiring manager or human resources, depending what that is. I mean, you don't want to camouflage any periods that you might have been unemployed by leaving dates out. That might create suspicion. But it's not unusual for people to be out of work if they've lost their job, they've taken parental leave, they perhaps have moved from overseas, like many of you will, to Canada, or just decided they're in between contracts and they've taken a bit of a break. I think employers are more concerned what you're doing during that time. So if you're taking any educational courses, the temporary assignments, if you're involved in volunteer work, I would definitely make sure that that is included in your resume with some dates surrounding it. Sonia, if we can move to the next slide. Thank you. So what to leave out? Reasons for leaving. It's better to wait to address this issue when it comes up in person or when you're asked. You might be asked in a phone pre-screen as well. Personal information. It's common practice to include some personal data, so like your name, your phone number where people can reach you. So that would be your mobile, likely, and a voicemail if you've got it, your LinkedIn URL, as well as your email. Some people will include their actual physical residence address. Some people won't, but there are some things you definitely would not include. That includes your marital status, the names of your spouse and children, religion, political affiliation, your age, your date of birth, hobbies, country of origin, your SIN number, passport number, height, and weight. I could go on. I'm using these examples because I have personally seen these throughout my career. References available upon request. There's no need to include this phrase if someone needs your references because they're going to be providing a job offer, they will ask you for it. Do not include your references on your resume. Sometimes this will, if your resume gets into the wrong hands, someone might actually use these for purposes of not employing you. And as well, no photos. Many countries in the world, it's commonplace and expected to put a photo on a resume. That is not the case here in Canada. So avoid Resumania. These are some real life resume mistakes that have been submitted to us from our staffing professionals or ones we've come across. So accomplishments: have received 3 marriage proposals. Maybe not one you want to put on your resume. Professional goal: I want the job, but I don't want to have to interview for it. And references: Barry or Barry from Toronto. So definitely look at what you're putting down and see whether it's pertinent to the job you're applying for and your job search. Sonia, if we go, thanks. So top application blunders. CFOs were asked, what do you think the most common mistakes candidates make in the application process? At 39%, its materials include irrelevant information. 29% materials contain typos or poor grammar. 19% materials are not customized to the job the candidate is applying for. 8% the materials focused on job duties and not accomplishments, and 5% did not answer or did not know. So common resume pitfalls. Cute and clever language. Hiring managers may not be amused by puns or jokes. I think you want to be straight, simple, to the point, focusing on your skills and experience. Typos and grammars. An office team survey, 84% of executives said it takes just 1 or 2 typographical errors in a resume, and it could be a cover letter as well, to remove a candidate from consideration for a job opening. Before you send it, read it out loud, top to bottom, pass it around to a friend or family member to have them take a second glance. This is super important, and definitely you want to do this if you are making new resumes to do a double check. So, and do that for your cover letter as well. Misrepresentation. Never lie in your resume or embellish the truth. It could cost you your job. So ensure that your resume matches what is linked in your LinkedIn profile, and as well what is on file for your past organization. So that might include dates, title, the organization. Organizations will do reference checks. And if they call and things do not match what's on your resume, that can create discrepancies and misrepresentation and a sense of doubt in the hiring manager or HR individual. Vagueness. You want to ensure enough detail to describe your experience and ensure the hiring manager has some interest in reaching out to you and speaking to you. Listing only your job title and a very vague description of your contributions likely will not pique interest. And overkill. Don't overdo it by using a ton of adjectives or business phrases. Write your resume so it's quick and easy for the hiring manager to understand. And then, like we said before, don't include a lot of personal information. Maybe leave out your favorite color or your name of your dog. So tips to applying via email. Paste your cover letter into the body of the email and include the title of the position you're applying for in the subject line. For us, if we're posting a job online, we'll include the title as well as a job ID number. So if you can include that. So follow the instructions that are listed in the posting. In this correspondence, whether this is sending the cover letter or sending correspondence between yourself, a recruiter, a hiring manager, a human resources professional, I would avoid emojis, any text talks or short forms. It's always safe to use professional business English in all your job search correspondence. So I would highly recommend that. So getting your resume into print. Use formatting elements sparingly, such as boldface, underlying, italics. Consider using bold lettering only to highlight certain categories, such as a job title. Avoid graphics and pictures. Your accomplishments alone should be enough to make your resume stand out. Very important to stick to one font to ensure there's a consistent look. So Arial, Times, Palantino, those are popular ones. Anything between a 10 and 14 font. The larger the point size, the larger the font and the less room you have to write. But when font sizes are too small, it can make the resume hard to read, especially if the person reading it has any vision issues. Choose a simple paper if you're going to print it off, which I highly recommend doing if you're going to an interview. Technology sometimes fails. I've had situations where individuals have come to meet me in person. I'm not able to print their resume and they don't have a copy on hand. So print it on white, off-white, maybe cream paper. But even if you're not going to be bringing it in person, print your resume to ensure your CV looks the same as it does online. Sometimes it doesn't. It can be thrown off in formatting. And sometimes when there's fancy formattings, such as highlighting, boxes, tables, sometimes that can create issues in printed format or even in some online tools. Sonia, if you can move to the next slide, please. 78% of executives said cover letters are valuable when evaluating job candidates. Once you finish your resume, you want to sit down to create this new document, a cover letter. Because the job application process is increasingly moved online, some job seekers think a cover letter has outlived its usefulness, but definitely not the case. As we said, 72% executives find it valuable. It's simple enough to do. When applying for a position electronically, paste your cover letter into the body of the email. You can also send it as an attachment. If you send it as an attachment, send it as a separate one to your email. So definitely highly recommend doing it. And we're going to talk about the necessity of a good cover letter. So it's your first chance to make a good impression. A cover letter is usually the first thing the person who screens your resume will look at. So it's a first chance to maybe set you apart. A well-focused cover letter allows you to direct the reader's attention to those aspects of your resume that are likely to push the right buttons or get someone to pick up the phone to have a conversation. A well-researched cover letter allows you to demonstrate your knowledge about the company as well as the industry you're applying for. And a cover letter represents your only means of explaining aspects of your work history, such as the unemployment gaps, maybe a lack of direct experience that you have in the field, that might otherwise portray you as being unqualified, but perhaps you've gotten some experience in this area, maybe not through paid employment, but through volunteer experience, and you're able to highlight that. It takes time to pull together the cover letter, but it's definitely worth the effort and time to do so. Tanya, if you can move to the next slide, please. So developing your cover letter. The first thing you should do before writing your cover letter is to take some time and think about what you want that letter to accomplish. And think about the 1 or 2 points you really want to convey. So you might consider 2 or 3 points that you want to get across. Ignore the fact that you may not have the exact background that the hiring manager is looking for, but you want to make sure that they still consider you for the interview. And you want to think about maybe some things that might come up if you did get an interview that might raise some questions. Once you know what you want to convey, you can start to draft your letter. So the opening paragraph should announce the purpose of your letter and give the reader a compelling reason to read on. If you're putting this as an attachment, do include the title as well as maybe in the subject line the actual job order number, if applicable. And this helps you build a connection with a hiring manager. If you know the person's name, utilize it. If you don't know the person, sir or madam, probably is a safe way to go. Next slide. Developing the body of your cover letter. Briefly explain your current employment situation. Tell the reader what you're looking for and why the position of is of interest to you. Expand or call attention to some of the points on your resume of how you meet this. And if necessary, explain aspects of your resume or background that may not be obvious and that might work against you. And highlight what qualities you can bring to the job. You don't want to focus on conveying what you want, but what you can offer to that employer. So this wraps up the webinar component of the resume and cover letter. Definitely very critical tools to helping you land an interview and hopefully land a job, and definitely worth investing the time at any point in your career. And even if you're not looking for a job at this point in time, definitely something to continue to update to ensure that you capture everything you've done throughout your career. Thank you for joining me, and hopefully you found these tips helpful.
Thank you, Michelle. That was a great webinar. So it was definitely lots of information packed. Again, thank you so much for your participation, everybody. We are very active on our social media on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So if you want to find out what's happening next, what's going on online or in-house, check them out on our social media platforms. Again, thank you very much for participating. Michelle, thank you so much for coming back, and we will look forward to seeing you again soon.
My pleasure. Thanks for hosting me.
Thank you. And everyone, there is a survey at the end of the webinar. We'd love for you to fill it out and hear from you. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great day or evening ahead.